Guys, John Zannis, Sherrod Blakely at the Garden, Bobby Manning joining shortly. Sherrod's Pistons fall to Bobby's Celtics.
I've got a
One,
stake in both teams.
yeah, I know.
I won.
Yeah,
I'm totally winning this game. No
yeah,
matter who won, I won.
I know. Sherrod's DNA is back in Detroit, but now his blood, he bleeds green. Of late. So
Ben
114.
Wallace is not walking through that door.
No, no,
Chauncey Billups is not walking through that door.
no. But apparently, Dana Barrows and Antoine Walker and a random collection of, I guess, you know, and Scal and Kelly Olynyk and Leon Poe
It
and a
was
bunch
the.
of other people.
You know what? For those of us who just have this random fascination with Celtics for whatever the hell our reasons are, that was awesome, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it was. I mean, because as someone who grew up absolutely loving Dana Barrows to death, it's always good to see him out there. And then you throw in James Posey and Antoine Walker and Paul and Scal. It's just like, wait, who the what?
Yeah.
It's good to see the old timers though. Good to see them come
No,
back.
it was just funny. It's like somebody, the Celtics had all of their interns just calling people up like, "Hey, did you ever play for the Celtics?" Yes. And you're alive? Yes. And you're around? Yes. Could you come to the Garden? Like there just wasn't much rhyme or reason to the collection of people, but it was still interesting. And you love the old timers. I always love Antoine because he loved being here. He loved being a
Yeah,
Celtic.
he really did.
I loved his energy, though he was a flawed player. It was really hard to not like him. So I always have a special affection for Twan. I
Who's the
love
guy you wish
Dana.
was here?
Huh?
Who's the guy you wish was here who wasn't here? Besides Ray Allen.
Oh, for this?
Yeah.
I don't know. Good question.
I would love to see Eddie House.
Eddie was in studio or something. I thought he was doing pregame.
Really? Okay.
I saw him on Twitter with his jersey. I think Eddie House is in the house somewhere. I think he's around.
Good.
He's a good guy, good personality, ton of fun.
Really is.
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
I like Eddie.
The coolest thing about Eddie House was like after he got traded from the Celtics and we're in LA and he could easily just get the hell out of Dodge. He was like, nah, we could do interviews. And so this dude just got traded and he's willing to just like kick back and shoot the breeze. Guys just don't do that. He's such a good dude.
Eddie's a good dude. And again, yeah, I have an affinity for Dana. I grew up, down the street from BC. I followed that lineage of great BC guards with, John Bagley, Michael Adams, Dana Barrows, all the way to Troy Bell. But when I used to go to BC basketball camp as a kid, I remember one time Dana was there working out. He talked to us, but I got to shoot around with him a little bit. I thought it was the coolest friggin' thing in the world. I'm one of those few times where I was making a few and he's just kicking it back out to me and I'm like, so like I love that.
Dana's for three.
Yeah, Dana's great. So anyway, as for the game, for three quarters we were probably kind of building a narrative of like, what is it with these Pistons that gives the Celtics problems? And I don't think it changes much based on the final score because Detroit powered down. I don't even know the Celtics really applied any more pressure. Detroit started settling for shots. They just stopped falling. They were probably falling at an impossible clip through the first three quarters, and that's why the game was as close as it was. But still interesting that this team really can go punch for punch with them. Again, it's hard to tell whether it's the style of play or they've just gotten really fortunate with just shots falling. The loss that the Celtics had right before the All-Star break was a game in which Detroit shot more better than 50% from three. So again, I'm not really sure. I'll bring in Bobby here too. But what is it about Detroit that kind of annoys them? Do you think, Sherrod?
I think it has a lot to do with the fact that Detroit relies much more on ball movement than I think a lot of other teams where you have, great ISO player in Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant and great ISO players, like DeMar DeRozan in Chicago and Zach LaVine, whereas Detroit doesn't really have a great ISO player. So they have to swing the ball and Boston's defense is predicated on trying to get you to go ISO. They want you to try and score one on their 5. And Detroit doesn't do that because they don't have guys who have that capability yet. And that's why I think they make Detroit or they make Boston work a lot harder defensively than Boston is used to, because most teams are trying to get that mismatch and go to that. Where Detroit, they're not trying to fool anybody. They don't have it. And so they make Boston's defense work a lot harder than I think a lot of teams do.
Yeah. Bobby, your first impressions of the game here?
Another, I thought, fairly resilient game. You don't think that against the worst team in the league, but I thought they were in their own heads with the officiating for a while there. Certainly stagnant on offense early, sloppy, turning the ball over and such, and not playing great defense at all in that first half. So a lot of that turned around late. Obviously, the fourth quarter was phenomenal, and you go from there.
Drink.
So, good win.
Bobby, 5 points from Detroit up until the 141 mark of the fourth quarter without a single field goal made. Unbelievable.
Yeah, there are a couple garbage ones late, but they essentially allowed no Pistons baskets in the fourth. A few free throws here or there. And great transition play. I'm going to give Marcus Smart a lot of credit, because I think, to answer the question you just asked, Sherrod, John, I think what Sherrod says is true, but also the physicality of Detroit we've seen in all of these games really gets into Boston's head.
They're fast and they're physical, and they're
even
athletic.
with no beef stew, Jeremy Grant's causing some problems for Tatum. Brown, guys are swiping away at the ball. They're throwing the blitzes at Tatum.
Smart was struggling with Cunningham.
Yes.
He was giving it back to him a little bit on the other end, being able to kind of work the post on some possessions. But defensively, he was having a tough time in that first half. Again, Cunningham
he stood up well with the physicality of this game. He hit a lot of shots. He kept them in it when it got to like the 5 to 7 range. I thought he was the guy who really set the table for Tatum to go off late.
Smart was great.
Yeah, he fit right in. You get a win here. You're not looking ahead to Dallas. It's all good stuff. I don't think you come away with this game blown away by anything that the Celtics did, certainly. I think there's still a lot of things that they're going to have to clean up offensively out of this one. Defense was a mess in that first half overall, I thought. So to turn around, win, close as dominantly as they did was great. And between the Charlotte game and the Detroit game, you have 2 dominant fourth quarters here where you're essentially holding both these teams to under 30% from the field.
Right. And that's the whole thing. It's like, it's got this, again, they've got this easy breezy feel where you're looking at how many games in the last, week or two have they had, going back to the homestand there, where you started with Atlanta, you didn't play a great first half there, and then, Memphis, you're going blow for blow and you blow their doors off in the second half. Charlotte, and now again here, it's that thing good teams do, which is, okay, it's going to be close. It's, if we're even, we're leaving. It's going to be close, and then we're going to just kind of take over. A lot of that's coincided with Tatum's kind of ability to take over games single-handedly, but also it's just like eventually they just kind of wear other teams down. And even if and we've seen it a bit, even if that defensive pressure, even if they're a little out of sorts or teams are hitting shots, eventually it gets to them. And I do think they are just kind of wearing teams down. The combo between that and then just Tatum just being ridiculous. This was such an easy breezy 31 points for him too.
Everything downhill. He was so aggressive early, and he kept them in it. It never got bigger than 7 just because of how many shots he was hitting, especially inside. I mean, he averages 6-7 shots at the rim a game, and early in the second quarter, he was the 6th. So he blew by that. I think in the end, I'm going to pull up his shot chart here. He ends up shooting a ton inside, finishing a ton inside, and physically doing it too. Just like last game, dunking quite a bit, getting out on the break. There's a real stylistic shift with him that we continue to see.
More threes in the second half, was more aggressive in the first half.
Yeah.
He definitely, I think he did. I think he took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 threes in the second half. Say half of his field goal attempts were from outside the arc, 1 for 6, and he scored, 4 for 6 from inside the paint. He was a little bit more aggressive early, but just Sherrod, again, just the way he's getting there, like just the way he's able to finish now through contact, just stuff that he wasn't doing before. He's still, he's just got to stop with the complaining. He's just got to stop. Just stop. Just let it happen. But
it got out of control.
He's not getting the calls, but it's getting out of control. It's unreal, but he's finishing through contact pretty regular now. Oh, Sherrod, I don't have you.
We lost Sherrod.
Noah, we don't hear you. check your input and see if that's synced up with your mic here. But while Sherrod's figuring that out, Bobby, what do you think?
It's a lot of the stuff we talked about after last game. It's a very similar game, I felt like, to last one from Tatum. Obviously, it wasn't 44, but just the aggression and, like we talked about after that game, using his body to create contact inside rather than veering around guys. It's the biggest difference from what we saw from him, especially 2 years ago, last year when he was doing that early. And then even early on this year, you saw him veering out of the way and being a little too finesse there in the lane. He's so strong at this point that guys really can't stop him inside there. And there's this one thing that Ime keeps doing with him that I love. They do this screen with Tatum. Remember early in the year, John, we talked about Tatum never setting screens, especially him and Brown for each other.
They never ran any actions,
But now, like, he's setting these screens that, like, slide him right into the lane around the free throw line on smaller guys, and he spins around them or either backs them down right from that spot. And it just gives him a nice closer position of the basket to start his possessions from. It's an incredibly effective play. He hit a big shot over Curry last Sunday on that play. There was a big one in the Charlotte game down the stretch. Ime's loving that play because it's so automatic for Tatum right now. He just set a little switch, slide right to the free throw line on a smaller guy, and he's instantly has a mismatch right there.
Yeah, no, it's just, I don't know what it is. If it's just like the game is slowed down a little bit. It's just some of that stuff that wasn't working earlier in the year. He's just getting to where he wants to go. He's finishing so differently now, both creatively and using physicality. It's completely different. There'll be times where I felt like earlier in the year he's headed to the basket and you're like, I don't know if this is going to end well. And now, that steal and that drive where he finished through contact in the N1 was just friggin' unbelievable. It's just stuff we weren't seeing from him. And again, he didn't have and it wasn't even a lights out game from him. This is what I mean is, like, when we talk about Tatum and his ceiling, you look at a game like this where he was like great in spots, pretty good throughout, all in all, just a solid game. Didn't feel like he dominated, and he still just scored an easy 31. I feel like he should fall into games like this all the time, this is just who he could be. He gets this in his sleep.
It was 92-90 after the third. They just blew it up there in the fourth, and Tatum. I never thought he would be a transition player. You talk about the steal and the finish there.
Yeah, because that's been killing us. That's been killing us for years.
And the fast break that they're running is incredibly effective. I think a lot of the stuff that we're seeing with Tatum is him going from all that success early in the year, and he's talked about this throughout this season, and just how easy things came to him and the team by just playing their style. And then you have these last 2 years where they lose a ton of games. They're still trying to do the same old things in terms of how they approach the game. Now he's starting to try the things that Ime has preached, and various people have tried to instill in him here in terms of aggression, playing with pace, getting off the ball. Did you see that play? He didn't end up hitting it, but he fired the ball out to the left wing on the drive, got to the left corner, caught the ball again, got a wide open three.
I actually thought he should have attempted a shot on that one. I love the fact that he does that. We were talking about how, earlier in the year, there just wasn't enough movement. And you see that all the time with him relocating and people doing that and making a play and relocating and getting the ball back. So much of what we talked about is, I do think that Tatum and Brown took so much on themselves early, which was, and I've always said this, I don't think they play an ISO style because they're selfish. I think they think that's the way to impact the game. But part of the buy-in was give it up, move without the ball, go somewhere else, get it in a better place where you can score. And, they've definitely done that. And that was a play where, again, he did it. He whipped the ball out. He went over to that corner. He missed that three. I still think he could have probably gotten that shot off instead of the pass, but you love to see that. You love to see them kind of moving around like that.
Yeah, it's a mentality thing for the team, and we get annoyed when Rob does it sometimes. There's a couple guys you'd rather be aggressive in spots, but
Rob almost posted up today.
Yeah, you have different guys for that. You'd rather see Tatum, who we know can be aggressive and take a lot of shots and score a lot, make those extra passes, whereas Brown, he's going to take a lot more shots and not move the ball as much. And Smart even is getting super aggressive, still moving the ball, but taking a lot of shots inside and being aggressive in those spots. So you have something for everyone there. Rob, he's still going to kick it out from the lower portion of the net there and not take as many shots around the rim there. Missed a couple weird dunks too in this one. Hot start for him, weird second half where he just ended up missing a lot of point blank looks in there. Rob, that is. And thought White super aggressive again.
Yep.
Getting downhill in transition, forcing turnovers himself, good passing out of the corner. I know you like some of the stuff he does out of the corner there with hesitations and stuff, killing extra clock and, just making extra passes
just
out of that
smart,
position.
And it's patient. And he kind of does what is called for. It's very rare where White will do something and you're like, oh man, and even when you get frustrated with him, it's just because shots aren't falling, but most of the ones that he takes are quality shots. So he's always kind of making the right decisions and making the right plays with the ball. But these are the types of games that we like from him. I'll give a little tip of the hat to Jaylen. I thought he was really out of sorts again to start this game. Just an off shooting, couldn't get himself in a rhythm, got caught complaining in that play. And was it the first quarter? Late in the first quarter, he gets caught
on
complaining
the dunk try,
to a ref.
Right?
And he's complaining about something, and then Derek White passes it to him when he's not looking. It goes out of bounds, and the camera crew didn't show a replay of that. That was horrible. And he was just all off, just everything. And he battled back in kind of the way that he does, which is just to kind of be aggressive.
Yeah, it's the story of his season. It's been so weird. Missed free throws lately. Sloppy shooting, 1 of 8 from deep in this one.
Right.
Losing the ball, losing his handle. But then, the bailout shot off of Tatum's pass at the end of the shot clock. Some of the looks underneath he got were great getting to the free throw line. And overall, I thought his defense was solid. 8 rebounds, still a big force in that part of the game. And certainly he plays with a lot of pace that I think just generates a lot of movement for this team downhill in transition. And he makes himself a target, too, for Tatum, which is important. Part of the ball movement here, 4 more assists. It was a resilient game for him, too, because it was out of sorts early. I think everything you hit on there was pretty accurate with him. But I don't know. How do you get him back to being Jaylen?
So
is this just the story of who he is this year?
This is what we've been thinking about. And it's interesting because when Tatum's not going well, when you talk about who is Jaylen supposed to be and how does he best complement Tatum, and at the end of the day, look, you're supposed to play a team brand of basketball and the ball moves around. It ends up places and there's different people out there who can do different things with it. And Jaylen Brown is one of them, which is great. Okay. Sherrod's having some major issues with the Wi-Fi there, so he may or may not be able to jump on here. The Celtics press room is jammed up right now. Maybe Sherrod, I know you're still kind of there. When the garden thins out a little bit, maybe the Wi-Fi will be a little bit better, and maybe you can try to
come up to the 9th floor party up here.
Humming up here. So we keep talking about who he's going to be, and I was actually thinking about it all game. When Tatum isn't going great, you always Brown a lot of times would save them with those hot quarters, and you'd have those really slow Tatum starts, and then Jaylen Brown would get 12 points, 14 points. It'd be great. And that was good because they needed it. But when Tatum is playing at this level, who's Jaylen Brown supposed to be? And I almost wonder if he might become a stand in the corner guy, wait for the pass, wait till the defense is drawn another place and kind of go back to that when Tatum is on the floor. And when Tatum's not on the floor, he's a little bit more of the, take it himself and try to do more things than himself there. But it is almost kind of like when Tatum's going the way he's going, you kind of want to just give him his space to operate at this point. It is hard there's no way for Tatum to do what he's doing now with the amount of time he needs the ball in his hands to be able to do it. And Jaylen to also do that because it's going to turn into my ball, your ball, my ball, your ball.
It can't be the corner thing. I hate that.
Not quite the corner. He's just got to kind of be there, He's got to be involved in the action. He's got to be one of the 4 instead of like I said, instead of it being a trade-off.
I found Brown, especially recently as Tatum has started to go off here, to be less of an active off-ball player than Tatum is. Tatum, he's really, as we talked about with the screens and the cuts and everything else, a lot of cuts off Rob last game on offensive rebounds, going downhill the basket. That's stuff you wish you'd see from Brown more. Making himself available, I think, a lot of the times is a challenge for him. It's been better this year. I think he's typically taking like 18 to 22 shots a game like he did here. His usage within the offense, I think, is where it should be. but it's just, can he be in better spots to position himself to succeed? Certainly the shot isn't there this year, so you're going to have to do a lot more downhill stuff if you're him. And, set a screen, slip into the lane. I think that's where Tatum's going to be used a lot of the time. But you're right, the bench usage for him is going to be key. And right now, it just doesn't look like the handle's there enough to be able to be in a lead guard role with that group.
It's not.
But he's got to make himself involved in the actions, whether it's with Smart staggering in those groups, White. I think White's still trying to find himself really at that second year. Overall, the bench, I know they've been dominant the last couple of minutes here overall, or last couple of weeks here overall. I haven't been thrilled with the bench. White's played some good minutes. Grant's been up and down lately. And Pritchard, I feel like he sprinkles in that one or two shots like in the second half, but up until that point, he's largely absent out of these games. So you are seeing big minutes with Brown and Tatum next to each other, which is fine, but not really a ton of opportunity for Brown to either lead the second unit or be involved in those actions when Tatum's off the court. In fact, Tatum's playing so much, like he goes out of the game for 2-3 minutes, and all of a sudden you see him running back from the bike right up to the stand when things start to go a few points out of their way a little bit.
Well, you look at it. I mean, that regular rotation there, Bobby, has him coming out at the 6-minute mark of the first, and then he usually he's coming back in there. He hangs in that second. He gets in there pretty quick again. So you're right. I mean, things stagnate right now, and just the way it's working is, the better he plays, the more dependent you become on him, which means the harder it is to operate when he's not out there because he's doing so much out there. So there's a catch-22 aspect to it as well, where it is hard to survive the non-Jason minutes right now because there's simply not enough offensive firepower out there, and Jaylen can't play in a primary ball handler role. I don't know whether that's
a lot of it's on Brown. He's got to be better. He's got to clean that up. He's got to limit the turnovers, and he's going to hit the free throws. Again, you get
overall the season percentage isn't as bad. I mean, the fact that he was a 50-40 guy last year, but still only shoots 76% from the stripe is strange. And this year he's down just a tick. I think it's 74%. It is odd though. That seems like more of a mental lapse than anything because he's got a pure stroke. There's no reason that the free throw percent should be that low for someone like him.
Yeah, and I wrote about that years ago with him. He missed a big free throw in a big high school game that kind of ate at him for a while, and it was really a struggle for him when he first came into the league. He was in the 60s at points. I think you have the numbers in front of you there through the first few seasons of his career. So it's gotten better. It's just always been I don't want to say an issue for him, but
you're right.
It's lower than it should be.
It's, what's fun? I'm looking at him now. I looked at them earlier because I've been formulating my Jaylen kind of take because a couple reasons. One, just watching this game and watching the last couple, but also I had somebody kind of DM me on Twitter just talking about whether Brown is happy with Tatum's success here. And we've talked about this offline. It's impossible to know what's going on. And I don't want to cause drama and just put thoughts and words into people's heads, but always the fear, not the fear with Brown, just whether Brown's going to want to remain is going to largely depend on whether or not he wants to be the Robin to Tatum's Batman at this point, because I don't know that it's any longer a 1 and 1A thing. I think it's clear a 1 and a 2, and it's a clear
doesn't it have
line.
to be? I think it has to be 1.
Whether it does or doesn't have to be, at the end of the day, it's obvious that it is. There are some worlds in which LeBron James and Anthony Davis are both alphas in different ways. Obviously, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, I think you could go back and forth between those two. There's not a huge separation between them. There is a separation here, and it's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if Jaylen feels the reason there's a separation is because of his role, and if he were to go somewhere else that he could score 28 a game, make all-star teams after all-star teams, get supermax deals, make all NBA, and what's holding him back is having to be here. And at this point in his life, that's what he wants more than, playing alongside Tatum. It'd be different if they were winning, but they're good. And now that they're better, it changes the equation. But when they were around 500, it's like, what am I sticking around for? To be the number 2 guy to this guy and for us to be a 500 team didn't make sense. The more they win, the more that changes the equation for sure. But it is kind of interesting about like role and, what he wants. We don't know what he wants.
Well, it is good to have more established roles for sure. And there was times in the past where we sort of go back and forth from being Brown nights to Tatum nights, and now you see a more defined Tatum-centered offense. and Brown trying to get in where he fits in, which I think he's doing a good job with. There haven't been a lot of games where Brown's been completely absent in a scoring sense. He's been so aggressive that he still gets that 20-point mark more often than not, which is probably all they really need from him. It's just got to be a little more efficient, and that does fall on him. And obviously the comment coming through is coming back from the ankle injury. I think he pushed back a little hard.
You can tell he's lacking a little bit of lift.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
So that is a consideration too here. I do think he's going on a nice little run before that injury there. And listen, I think he's had a fine season. There's just little lapses from him sometimes. And I see a lot of the chatter and speculation in the chat. I think a lot of it's well placed. Sometimes I think, especially in the defensive end, it almost gets lost. I don't know if it's thinking too much. That's something he's talked about in the past on the offensive end for him, overthinking his ball time, his opportunities on the ball in those situations. And the handle's been an issue for, I want to say, his whole career. It cleaned up a little bit at one point.
I know. That's the thing. So, I mean, and for full honesty here, I know people get really triggered, with this stuff. And it's fine. People get sensitive with some of it. The reality, and everyone's saying, oh, ankle. We're not talking about the last 3-4 games. The entire season, and again, I know he had a hamstring earlier. He's down. He's down in all of his metrics across the board over last season, clearly, by every measure. Okay. And the eye test too. Last year, there were periods of time where he didn't just look like he was better than Tatum. He looked like he was a top 5 player. I mean, he carried them for stretches at times last year and certainly earlier in the year. And that was the second straight year where he had taken a massive leap in terms of his overall performance. So for full disclosure, at the beginning of the year, one of our bold predictions and one of mine was I said Brown was going to surpass Tatum as the alpha on this team. So for all the people out here who are like, John hates on Jaylen, it's not. I'm a little bummed about it because I'm disappointed in the way he's played this year, because I thought Tatum was starting to plateau a little bit the last 2 years. I felt like we're very much the same for him. And Brown kept getting better, not just in terms of the numbers he was putting up, but the stuff he was doing. His handle last year, at the beginning of the last year, was so much better than it was the year before. So it's so weird. And his head was up. He was making more plays. It's so weird to see this regression in style with that sloppy, loose dribble, his head down, really not able to kind of, keep an eye on what's going on and make plays consistently. I didn't expect him to go in that direction. So that's why when we're hard on him, I'm like, what happened to Jaylen? Because we're so used to him going this way. Yeah. And he had been, 2 years ago, he made 2 leaps in 1 year. So he just kept getting better and better and better. So this was it's been strange watching him this year. And I don't know how much of that is because he's been beset by injuries. You've got the wrist coming in, which kills his off season. And he started the season a little bit behind in that regard. Then the hamstring plagued him on and off. He missed a bunch of games and he wasn't right when he did. Now he's coming back off the ankle. So all of that's real, but
I think when he has been out there, his role's kind of thrust all over the place. Remember, there was a solid 2-3 weeks there where he was a lead ball handler on this team. And he had to hone in on that and making the quick decisions and running the pick and roll and all that different stuff. And we were sort of spinning our heads at the highs and the lows of that. Some real strides in that area, but it took him away from his bread and butter. And now he's settling back into that role. We've seen him a lot in the last few seasons. Sometimes I think it would be more of like a third role for him. And it still kind of is, right? Because Smart's the point guard on this team right now. And so Brown falls down that ladder, probably even behind White in ball time there. And he's got to find out whether it's almost that 0.5 second offense. And we've talked about this, whether the quick decisions would befit his style of play. He's kind of the guy, much as Tatum, I'd say at least, who likes to dribble around and size up his opponents. Certainly likes the transition game and getting on the break, but he's not a guy who naturally, I think, in the half court, that rapid fire shooting, making the next pass. He's a guy cutting, like those quick decisions, especially off the catch, I think are tricky for him. He almost looked better when he was the lead guard. I know you didn't like him in that role, John, but at least he had kind of the time and space in that spot to size up the defense.
The best thing about it is, the way they're playing now, and that if there is another kind of like get right for Jaylen, which is like whatever nagging injuries he's had, get behind him, and he peaks or he kind of regains, last year's form at the end of this year into the playoffs, it's just another thing right now because he hasn't been great. He hasn't been awesome. He's been good in spurts, but inconsistent. So
coming into the night, last 14 games back to the beginning of February, 19 a game, 28% from three, 47 from the field, which is fine, especially at that volume. 66 at the line, 4 assists, 2.7 turnovers.
Yeah.
So it's fine. It's acceptable play. It's just
it's fine. It's not, but he's not. You're looking for what we say this every year. We're looking for
the expectations on this team are rising.
The expectation on these guys is not just that they're good, it's that they keep getting better to the point that, and we always use lists for examples where Tatum all of a sudden is clearly a top 10 player and Jaylen Brown is in the 10 to 15 range. And you've got those two as your superstars who are better than everybody else's two players. Otherwise, if they stay the same or, go backwards, then they're two nice players. And other teams also have, there's a lot of talent in the NBA right now. There's a lot of duos out there that are very formidable. So you want to keep seeing that arrow pointing up with Jaylen. That's all. But, it is interesting in terms of role and how it is with Tatum kind of rising the way that he is. Yeah.
Smart almost has more of a refined role than him right now, especially. So you love that, but Brown's a better player. And you just wish there was a way. It's almost like that Kemba situation last year. Brown was a better player than Kemba, but Kemba was just more comfortable in that lead guard role, able to handle the ball, run the pick and roll, do the different things you need in that ball time. Brown, the defining limitation of him, until he can figure it out on a consistent basis, is the ball handling. And he's really got to hammer
That's
that
what
down.
set him back more than anything. Yeah.
He's going to be an off-ball guy, and it doesn't seem like that off-ball style is conducive to him having the most efficient games that he can have. I mean, you give him the ball for a full game, he's going to score 40, 50 points and do it at 50% shooting. He's remarkable what he can do scoring, breaking the guys down individually, getting out in the break, and just being a high-volume scorer. It's trickier when he gets into lineups with Tatum there and second units with the less talent around him and all the different things they're asking him to do right now. It's an adjustment for sure, especially as Tatum's volume reasonably keeps rising and rising here because he's able to do more and more on the ball. Like Tatum did the things in terms of growing his game as a playmaker that Brown just wasn't able to do early in the year.
He's not, and it's all about the handle. And if we want to put it all on the wrist and you want to put it on other things, sure, it's possible. Absolutely. But it's interesting to see, what's happening there.
But you'll still take that 20 points on the side of Tatum. I mean, every night right now, that's your 50 points right there.
It really just comes down to like whether or not, what the exact role is in the complementary player sort of aspect thing. But I only ask it because I had somebody going at me today, just saying like, I don't think he likes it. I'm like, I don't know that that's true. I don't know that
I think he likes it. I think everybody likes it.
I don't think he's looking at Tatum. Because they're winning and they like it. So I disagreed with him that I didn't believe that. It's just when we talk about his future, a lot of it comes down to, does he want to be that forever? Or does he want to go kind of sprout his wings at some point? So that was mainly the conversation.
Listen,
I know people are so sad about this. Oh my God.
The stats don't look good for him out of this game. I thought he played a good game.
I thought he played a good game. That's why we brought it up. Yeah.
Getting in great positions at the basket to score or go to the free throw line. 7 free throw attempts. No, nothing shabby there. Like it's all good from him here. Quick decisions off the ball, recovering from those turnovers early, and essentially playing a clean second half and getting on the break with all those guys. It was good stuff. And the team, they've really embraced the style that he's most comfortable with, it running and gunning and getting stops and getting out there on the break. It all forms well, and I think it helps him and Tatum connect more. But just to wrap up this conversation on Brown, are you continuing to see them play together for the most part?
I loved it. Tatum found him how many times today? A ton, right?
Those numbers don't pop up right away, but we'll pull them up when they do. But overall, ever since really Ime made an issue of that, I want to say early November, mid-November, it's consistently been around 7 to 10-ish, whereas early in the season it might have been like 3 to 5.
Cass, I miss you if this is you, buddy. We were talking about you the other day.
What are you talking about?
Come on. Come on.
Man, the commenters hate this. They just do not want to hear real talk. I mean, we can't nitpick?
It doesn't matter.
Again, I am holding this team to a championship standard at this point. Yeah. It's going to be guns blazing if they disappoint here because they have built up a pedestal for themselves to stand on. You know, they're going to have some big-time matchups in this week against Dallas, Golden State. They got to stack up, and they got to play better than they did tonight at times to do that. And, you know, you finish strong here, you get 2 wins, you take care of business, you're happy with that. But the standard is getting very high for this group, especially for me. I think they're going to win the championship. So you're gonna need more from Brown to win a championship. You are.
Yeah. So moving on there, rest of the game stuff. We did talk about Derek White a little bit, giving the game exactly what it needed. He's had some nice third quarters, and that was good. I thought Smart was awesome. Smart, you know, especially going up against, you know, Cade, the way Cade was playing in that first half. That was that was
how good was he?
He was so good, man.
And
just everything.
You get on him late. Smart tried to make it tough on him. That was a battle early on.
It was fun. That was fun to watch.
Yeah, and he was going at it. Smart, Rob talking pregame, essentially deferring to Smart on the conversation we had yesterday about the Defensive Player of the Year. I know we didn't go too long on that, but it's become a hot debate in the NBA world over the last week or so here where the Celtics have risen up to this #1 defensive status. Is it Rob? Is it Smart? Is it Tatum? And Rob was asked at shoot around this morning, you know, where he falls on that. And he said, Smart by far. Yeah. Smart's a Defensive Player of the Year.
I mean, he said, if anyone on this team is, it's Smart. But that's what, you know, Sherrod and I think we're in that. We're there. And I'm not sure who else
I'm still leaning the Rob, but man, like the points he makes, the stuff you see him do in this game, the organizational aspect, and that's a tough one, right? Like, how much do you weigh that as a voter? Because when you're watching, if you're watching and you're not going off stats, and a lot of these voters are going to go off stats because they're national and they're not watching every Celtics game, but he really is putting them all in the positions.
I'm not a help side. I love what Rob does because it's impactful, but I always, you know, to me, I'm always going to favor the defender who locks people down versus the guy who's a great help side defender, you know, and wreaks havoc out there and, you know, alters shots. I know that's super valuable, and having a person like that really gets in the head of a defense. But just the ability to bug people and take them off their game, especially when they have the ball, you know, a lot in their hands, I think that's why, like, to me last year it was Simmons, you know, like, I know everyone's like, Gobert, look at the stats. I don't care. Ben Simmons.
Gobert's the favorite again in Vegas.
I know Ben Simmons is the best defender in the NBA last year. He's frigging lethal because he can erase a play. He erases people. You know,
wouldn't you love for Smart to get it? That would be such a validation for his career.
Be great for him. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that would put him into a new echelon as a defender all time there. And
it would have been. Yeah, and it would have been Draymond this year. He was out of his mind, you know, but him being hurt.
It's tricky. Like, so that I think the Celtics deserve it, right? What they've done.
Everyone's saying Rob's a contender. I don't think Rob makes an all-defense team, but that's fine.
He's on the. I was looking at the odds yesterday. I think he's 5th or 6th in the odds. Rob. Smart's not even on the list, so that just sort of shows the big man bias in this award.
I can't stand. That's a crusade of mine, Bobby. Yeah. I've been railing against that forever. It's someone who can defend multiple positions away from the basket is more important than a shot blocker.
I mean, he defends under the basket too, if you want to give him credit for that. Here's my thing, and this is where I fall on it, just because the Celtics are going to get this award, I would say, because of the fact that they've separated themselves so far as the #1 defense here over the, you know, 2/3 of the season that they've been playing at that level. So what has taken them to that level? You know, they had Smart last year. They've had Smart in years past, and they haven't been the #1 defense by far. Like, I think the key to what got them to that point is Rob moving that off-ball position and being the disruptor he is. And he's really got the numbers that you can sink your teeth into, whether it's like the 34 to 38%.
Yeah, you're right.
Between
Rob's
in terms
5th.
Of defensive field goal percentage.
Rob's 4th.
Because this does end up being a numbers award, John. And you know, Smart's got the steals. Like, he's way up there on the steals leaderboard, which could probably carry some weight. But I think people dive deep into the analytics on this stuff. And probably the shot deterrence that Rob creates in there, the shot blocking. I think he's top 5 in block percentage. Steals, big with the steals and deflections in the lane. I'm sure he's way up there in those numbers too. And really, that defensive field goal percentage against. Like, I think at one point he was holding offensive players to like 8% below their value when he was defending them. And that stat's a little flawed. Tracking data, one-on-one stuff's a little flawed in there. But he really has like a great statistical case, I think Rob does, that people, I think most voters at this point are looking at this award through.
I know people look. I mean, we know what Rob does. You know, and again, his ability.
Smart has the reputation, though.
I know,
right?
but Rob's ability to Rob's. You know, I get it. I get where it's coming from. It is interesting just looking at those odds. There's a massive big bias there.
So what's the what are the odds? How they stack up?
It's Gobert, and then it's let me pull it up again. Gobert and Bam. Gobert is still the overwhelming favorite as of recently, with Bam, Giannis, Jaren Jackson, and Rob tied for fourth, and Draymond still coming in at sixth, even though he's missed the last 20 games or whatever it is.
I don't know if it's possible, and we've seen silly stuff like this before with the All-Star game, and I know even on Dome Theory today, James Edwards was talking about co-rookie of the years. Could you give the Defensive Player of the Year award to the Celtics starting lineup? Just that unit as a whole, all 5 guys. That'd be kind of cool.
Marcus is, I've tried to find one that goes deep enough to include him, is 14th.
Is Rudy really going to win this year?
14th, tied with Jrue Holiday and Jimmy Butler. As far as bigs, what do you call Jaren Jackson?
4/5.
4/5. So I don't know if he'd fall. He might get, I'm just trying to even think of all defensive player positions here, because you're probably looking at Rudy, Giannis, Draymond, Jaren, and then who knows what.
Rob, is it a mixed bag like that? They kind of do positions, don't they?
They do, but you might give 2 forward slots to Giannis and Jaren Jackson, and then try to find a couple of guards. But I'm curious how that goes, because Robert Williams, right now, in terms of what you'd call a true 5, is up there. I would have thought it would be close with Mobley and Allen also getting respect, but he's getting
Jokic might even get some looks this year in terms of the weight he's carrying at that end. It's been an outstanding year for him on the defensive side of the ball too. Rob might end up being a tough snub there. You're right.
That is interesting.
He should probably fit in the second
I'm
team.
surprised he's getting the national recognition. I thought it usually takes a year after he arrives. So we saw the taste of Rob last year, but it wasn't a full season's worth of use, and he was kind of a limited player, and he had some injuries. So usually someone who kind of, breaks out in their first year doesn't get the recognition this quickly. So that's why I didn't think Rob would get it. But it's interesting that
his stats are through the roof. He's got a great statistical profile.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he did last year too. It's just it was somewhat limited.
Yeah,
his numbers last year per 36 were even more impressive.
Yeah, and if you care about this stat at all, I think Tatum leads the league in defensive win shares. So he's a big part of this as well, with the rebounding and the length and the help side stuff that he does. So he certainly has a case in his own right. That's why I bring up the unit as a whole. Everybody sort of invigorates each other in this group, and they play off each other and they communicate. And if you want to award Smart as the captain of it all, organizing it all, I think that's going to be a tough thing for voters to gauge who aren't watching it night in and night out like we are, but maybe his reputation overcomes that. It'd be very cool, because who really was the last wing to win that award? Did Kawhi win it at one point? Probably, and Jordan back in the 90s won it. So there's exceptions, but overall it is a big man's award, just because of the shot deterrence and the paint, and just how important protecting the paint is to defense.
Yeah, I'm trying to look back. Giannis obviously wins it as not a true center, but it's Rudy, 3 of the last 4. Draymond, and then Kawhi had won it 2 years in a row. But before that, Noah, Gasol, Tyson Chandler, Dwight Howard, Garnett, Camby, Ben Wallace. Ron Artest is another small forward into the mix there as a 3-4. Then it's big Dikembe and Alonzo and blah, blah, blah. Gary Payton wins it 1 year as a point guard. The glove.
Dikembe, would be fitting
Hakeem. Rodman had won a couple as well, but you're right. I mean, it's insanely slanted towards bigs.
I think Rob has my vote. Would be cool to see Smart win it, though, just to join that class of the Gary Paytons and the Jordans and the players that have done that on the perimeter, because he's built that career. He's built that reputation for himself. And this really is, I'd say, like his victory lap season. in that sense. This has been the best he's ever looked defensively.
I thought Rudy, because of a down year, they'd give it to somebody else. It's interesting he's still the number one. But anyway, Rob.
It's funny. People get tired of MVPs. They don't get tired of defenders of the year. I guess you just lock them in.
You know, it happens because you don't want to spend enough time to do your research and to figure it out. So a lot of people get the reputation votes. It's the same thing with baseball Gold Glove. It's like the year, Palmeiro won it when he had
pile them up.
130 games as DH that year, and then Jeter wins a couple and he can barely move. He's got the worst zone rating in the league. So anyway, moving on to this one, not a ton more in this game. Like I said, it was kind of a, up and down, so effort. And the Celtics blew their doors off in the fourth. Want to look ahead a little bit here. Really fun, both the game. So what's interesting is everyone's looking forward to KG. Bobby's more interested in Luka versus Tatum.
Why not?
Which is fun.
Yeah, it's these are the two guys. I want to see what Mavericks PR tweeted out because they played tonight, I believe, as well. He did some amazing stuff which he just pretty much does every night. He has, as I like to say, the flamethrower out every game, firing from half court, making these amazing passes, scoring at will in the lane, and he has torched the Celtics in his career with all the game.
He's got 2 game winners in his last 3 games against them.
So this is a guy you have to go out there and make a statement against if you're Tatum, because these are the guys that are jockeying for not only top 10 position, but I'd say like right up there around the 6-7 mark in the league. Like Tatum and Luka are neck and neck in terms of the hierarchy in the league, I'd say. And Luka has him edged out just a little bit off what he's done so early in his career. Not in the playoffs necessarily, although he's had those 2 grueling 70-game series with the Clippers fully loaded there. But overall, just the statistical profile that he's built up. Really, this young in his career had him borderline 75. Like when me and Nick were putting that 75 list together before the NBA did on Dome Theory, I was thinking Luka maybe. I was like, does he have to care? It's a little too early.
It's early. The thing that pisses me off about Luka is he came in out of shape this year. This should have been Luka's year. He threw away the first 20, 30 games of the year. Shooting horribly, just clearly playing catch up and not able to get his fitness right. He's better now, but he's still not. This guy dedicated himself, and got his body right. What was one of the reasons Jokic made a leap? He got his body right. That makes a difference. You have all the skill in the world. Jokic, doughy and out of shape, and gassed most fourth quarters, was what a top 5 player in the league. As soon as he got himself even in decent shape, good regular shape, look at Embiid when he finally got his body right. Massive difference, especially late in games. Luka, I don't get how this guy comes in looking the way he looks this year. That's an extremely frustrating thing.
Especially after the Olympics. Yeah, like why would he look like that? You don't know.
I'm so baffled by it. I don't know why that is. Because I think he's just magic. He can do anything.
Yeah, especially since he's gotten right. And there's been a lot of ankle injuries with him this year. He's been in and out of the lineup a ton. But he is, I think you said it after last game or a couple games ago, like best defensive rating in the league, and he's part of this unit that
I know
is getting it done at this end. So we're really looking at 2 similar teams in the Mavericks and the Celtics that have hammered down defense. I think these are the 2 of the 3 best defensive teams in 2022. You have a lot of shooting off the ball, great ball movement, and it's all built around this one brilliant player. Tonight, 30, 14, and 6 against the Rockets. But you can turn him over. Sometimes he doesn't have the shot. He's not the best shooter ever. And the supporting cast around him, even though it's gotten better since the deadline, swapping in Dinwiddie for Porzingis has helped them quite a bit in terms of their movement and versatility there. You still have a questionable cast of characters around him who kind of come and go in terms of their effectiveness. You have the better team than the Mavericks. It's just he's a daunting assignment. You don't even know.
He's awesome. And I know you're saying they're neck and neck. The way they're playing now, they're neck and neck. I still think Luka is again, we're talking about our bold predictions before the season. I thought this was the year that Luka asserts himself as the best player in the NBA and then holds that mantle for the next 5 or 6 or 7 years. I think the slow start and not being in great shape is what kind of kept him from that. I think he's the best player in the NBA.
Really?
I do.
He's better than Jokic?
I mean, he's not currently over the body of work for the season, but if I could pick one person right now, I'd pick Luka. I don't think I'd have to think very hard about it.
You know I love my defenders. It just kills me the way he defends. I love him too. And
Yeah.
I think he could be one of the best ever. But he's got to get a little better at that end, I think.
Yep.
And I haven't watched him a ton this year. I'm sure he's better if he's playing part of the system that's playing at that level. It'd be interesting maybe to talk to some people on the Dallas side going into this game because they've been amazing. And Jason Kidd, I think people question that higher. He certainly had the Lakers defense rolling in his years there, and now he has this defense rolling. And they were one of the worst for a couple of years there. So I think he's done a good job. Whoever he brought over on the staff there has done a good job with that group as a whole. And getting to Luka, I mean, they were tough on him in their own right. Luka ended up being tough on himself after that just, as you said, baffling entry into the year where he's just completely overweight. I think they said he was 275.
Yeah. It's so bizarre. So for me, it's Luka for skill, or it's Giannis for like just sheer force of will and just the physical and everything about Giannis. I think it's
Giannis might be I was asking this.
It's those two for me. Yeah.
I was asking this on Twitter. Who?
And I mean, obviously, Jokic is friggin' unreal. It's just I'm saying is like I'm just so amazed by Luka. He's just almost everything that he does with the basketball in his hands. He's just a freaking wizard.
He's a general out there. Yeah, he's got like that flair, the soccer player too that you love. Like
he's so good
when he's hitting those long threes and stuff. It's like he's scoring a goal out there, and that sort of comes from his background there with Real Madrid and all that. He's a really fun guy. I wish I got to see him out there in Spain. I just missed him when I was living in Spain there. He just left in the draft, so. I'm thrilled. This is what I'm looking for. I know it's KG night. I know all the legends will be in the house, but these are two players at the peak of their powers right now who are just going to be battling basket for basket. It's going to be incredible, and it's going to be another national showcase for the Celtics team. They obviously did a lot for their reputation last Sunday, and that win, if they win again here, I think you'll have even more people trying to make a popular case for them as unlikely champions this year, as I have here. It's really starting to reach that level here with this defense and the way Tatum's playing and just overall the way they're moving the ball and everything like that. I can see them winning this one. I really can.
Okay. And the other thing that everyone's really geeked up about, obviously, Celtics are going to retire KG's number in a ceremony after the game, which should be cool. And yeah, it's looking like it's going to be the official reunion of the Big Three, which is just a really boring story that I'm glad we can finally put to bed. But everything about KG is awesome, and it's going to be fun. And he's the guy from that team. He's the glue. He's the heart and soul. I know a lot of people were Pierce guys. But KG's amazing, and it's just a thing about him. So I'm really kind of looking forward to what that's going to be about. The stories have been a ton of fun. Just people have been talking about it, in the last few days, just about, there's just not a lot of people who've ever existed who are like Kevin Garnett.
Do you have a story you like?
No, I mean, it's not, I don't have a personal story. I covered the team extensively during that time. And so that was a really interesting time just to kind of be here. It's just to me, I've never seen not just the success of a franchise change. I've never seen a personality change of a team so instantly as it did when he came in here. Everything became about what Kevin Garnett wanted the team to be. It was automatic, and it was a total buy-in. Every single thing, they were one thing. And then obviously they got three great players together instead of just one. So the talent was there, but the entire personality of the team just became what KG wanted them to be. I don't know another athlete that's had that kind of effect on something as he did.
Yeah,
this is how we do things now. And that's it. I mean, he was just, and everyone was either scared to death of him to disappoint him, because he'd get in your face and he'd whatever, freaked out by his intensity in practice and at all times, but they just did it and they loved it. And that was that. And he took, best thing about KG, this is a guy who spent, he's not from here. He spent his entire career somewhere else. I love that. I love that he came here and this became his everything, like
you love that he's going out as a Celtic. The Wolves want to embrace him.
And being a Celtic was big to him and big to everybody, and it just kind of like created a vibe around this team that didn't exist that didn't exist before it and hadn't existed since the Bird era, in terms of just feeling good about the Celtics. Completely like re-energized and gave back that vibe of like the Celtics matter again. And like he took it and he ran with it. And honestly, people who are critical of like the heart of the current team or, players these days will harken back to 2008 and be like, those guys got it, and like, you want to see these guys starting to get that.
And that's what Ime talked about pregame is instilling that mentality in this team.
Right.
I know he's a Duncan guy. That's always the debate
Sure.
from that era. So there's different ways, but in terms of like the intangibles that you instill into a team, whether it's Kevin Garnett's intensity and effort and Duncan's, I guess, fundamentals on that end of the court where you're just dominant and being in the right place and in the right time and all that different kind of stuff. I mean, they were two incredible players who really built something special in the spots they were in. But that personality, the ability to not only take over a room, but take over an arena the way he did with that personality and the screaming and yelling and just the intensity being on 10 at all times. You don't know how someone does that. We see a lot of low energy guys in the league. We've never, ever seen someone approach his energy level. And I don't think we will again. There's never going to be another Garnett. You talk about guys that like are just irreplaceable.
I don't think human resources would allow it. Like, I mean, like, you can't be that way anymore without people being like, so you're kind of creating like.
Well, he didn't come in that way, did he?
People would call it like a hostile work environment. Like you couldn't do that now.
Yeah, I think that's something that evolved over his career, just looking back on it and reading all the stories and stuff, because he didn't come in that way with Minnesota. That really developed within him, and it was special. Like, that's a time you look back on, you're like, oh, you really want to enjoy every minute of that, because once it's over, you're never seeing anything like that again. Same thing with the Isaiah stuff we talked about a couple of days ago. Like, it's just a special moment in time that you're not going to see again. A lot of stuff repeats throughout sports history. You see the same stuff, same stories, repetitions of history, underdogs, all that kind of stuff. But some of the personalities are just one-on-one, and he really is one of those guys. And I think everybody's always looking back and saying, like, can he help this guy? Can he make this guy more like him? Can he work with this guy? Like, you do like the fact that he's growing closer to the Celtics organization, because I don't think there's a lot of players today that grew up idolizing Garnett, but everybody knew what Garnett was all about and knows how special he was and respected him in a pretty big way. I think that's going to be powerful for the Celtics moving forward. Even Pierce in the building tonight, like there's a power to that. I think like we talk about the alumni and stuff a lot, and like how you can have some sort of gravity and allure around this franchise again. Those guys are going to help, because I don't think you have a ton aside from that to really attract guys here.
No, that's it. Right now, the gravity is Tatum, but you're right. It's, how far out of, people's sphere of existence do you need to be to still matter? There's enough people who still get it. These guys watched, if you're a 25-year-old kid, that means what? 14 years ago, you were watching KG and Pierce. That means something to you. But another 5 years from now, and those guys are ghosts. So you're right. It is. It's getting further and further removed here. So right now, it still holds and it still resonates and it still means something. Because, like I said, is that before? I mean, I joke about this all the time. You talk about what it means to be a Celtic. If you didn't have 2008 and people had to go all the way back to 86, 87, 88, let's call it the end of the era, even though the last title's in 86, but you had to go back that many freaking years to show what the franchise was about, it might as well have been 1920 for all most people
Bird's
cared.
Like a figment of my
It's
imagination.
so far gone from people. If you didn't live it, even for a little, that means you got to be 50 or older to care, so like it's too long. Without those 2008 guys, the Celtics would have been like exactly like, we joke about it like peach basket sort of era, like, oh yeah, I know they were good way back then, but like that's way back, so this kind of gave them a little bit, gave the franchise that juice back. It was huge.
And I know they had a little bit of a prelude to it tonight. Pierce was here. They did a Legends line at half court, and I couldn't believe my eyes. Kelly Olynyk lining up alongside the Legends. I was like, is he joking? I was like, is he going to like sneak in here, like photobomb and like run off? No, he was already in the line and they called his name and everything. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, for the love of God, Scal's out there, It
was unbelievable. It was like
Scal's career high with Boston was 4 points a game, and Scal's out there.
It was like they scheduled the Pistons for tonight for alumni night. So
Olynyk was like,
get in the
I
picture.
guess I'll stand out here.
He got right out of there too. He knew it looked wrong himself in the Pistons shirt.
The whole thing was weird. Anyway, KG on Sunday, it'll be a different little programming note for us. So they're going to do it post game. It's going to take them a little while to set it up. So we're going to still hop up at the end of the game, and we'll do post game with you guys until the ceremony is really about to start. And when it does, we'll probably kind of like hang for a little, but we'll probably end it and let everybody watch there. So we'll still do a post game right after the show. These guys might be doing something pre-game as well, and let you guys, anybody out there who wants to kind of be part of the chat, talk about Garnett stories. We might get Nick on there who
get a look inside the arena. I know a lot of people are going to want to be in here.
We'll be inside. We'll have a bunch of people inside the arena, so we'll give you a little look inside as well. So join us for that if you want. Should be fun. I'll also mention, because I always do, check out our Discord server, clnsmedia.com. Sherrod, who had some technical difficulties, I think is over there right now chatting with some people. So if you want to pop in and chat with Sherrod, Bobby's got some business to take care of at the Garden. I may hop in there for a little bit also.
While I'm waiting for the train, I'll hop in late at the tail end. So we'll all be in there.
Yeah, so we'll hang in there, but it's always something fun to do, grow our community. We got a lot of people in there who just kind of hang out and chat with one another. clnsmedia.com/discord. Tell people about it. It's a great little space to just go in there and just kind of chat and talk Celtics, talk hoops. So head on over there, sign up if you haven't already. It's great for us. In the meantime, we'll sign off. Bobby Manning, John Zannis back on Sunday with the full cast of characters for the